Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 369. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from uh, nyfights.com and Communities Digital News, Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing, Daniel from 4 Boxing News and the Inscriber. We hope to have him on later. But in the meantime, what's going on, lady and gent?
It's a hot summer night. Let's get to the boxing talk.
Absolutely. Really good boxing card that took place this weekend, and a surprising announcement that us boxing heads found out about last evening. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, blog, site, discussing all things boxing. The motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you want to find out any and all information on the podcast, the show, blah, 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 you can please check out the site, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us with questions, comments, suggestions, you can do so, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you'll find the links to where to check out Pound for Pound Boxing Report all over the socials, be it link to the Facebook/Meta page, the link to the YouTube channel, link to the Twitter page, IG, as well as Tumblr pages. Also links to where to catch the podcast with just about everywhere on the podcast realm, be it Google Podcasts, be it Anchor, be it Apple podcasts, or even Spotify, anywhere and everywhere else in between. Also, if you go to the site, you can check out where you can donate. Let donation be the best nation. Got a Cash Me, PayPal, those donation links. It doesn't matter if it's $1, $2, $5. If you have some free coin on your hand that you could spare, please do so. And we would love the contribution to Pound for Pound Boxer Report. It'll help the overall production behind the scene. If you're checking us out live on YouTube, please make sure to click that subscribe button and click that like button. Shout out to Olaf. Shout out to Lee Gross, who's watching us and listening to us right now. Um, really hit that subscribe button, that like button. It'll help the overall algorithms and get us closer and closer to being monetized. And last but certainly not least, I again link to Beachbody on Demand. I strongly suggest folks check that out. At the very least, check out the 14-day trial, the free 14-day trial, and that is for 14 days. You get free access to any and all programs on Beachbody on Demand. If you're looking to get your body right during the summer, uh, BOD has programs for all your fitness goals and interests. If you're into weightlifting, there's Lift 4 and More Lift programs, kind of Lift 4 too, that's coming out this summer. If you're a professional athlete and you're looking for something to keep you in shape during off season, I strongly suggest you check out the old school P90X2. It's excellent for athletes, and 645, not 6 weeks of the work, excuse me. I consider those two of the hardest programs there. The P90X series, the Insanity Asylum series, they both still rock. Uh, if you're looking to do something morning time, morning meltdown is always good. Bar blend, Pio. If you're looking for a boxing specific workout, you can check out 10 rounds. That is a 6-week program, 5 days a week. 3 of those days consist of boxing based cardio. 2 of those days consist of resistance weight training. Gone through it a couple of times. Excuse me. I really like it. And I think you would like it too. Again, check out Beachbody on Demand. Link for it on Pound for Pound Box Report site. Let's get things going. Going to be a short show this evening. But let's start. Let's focus the recaps in with what took place in San Antonio. Excuse me. Um, we talked about it a lot last week. A very good card that took place on the zone. Headline, Gail, start the show with ladies first always. And for those who are checking us out live, again, if you want to get some break in with some comments or even some questions, I please do. I have no problem with that. The main event of that matchroom card was Jesse Rodriguez. Rodriguez kind of sprung out the blue for many fans with his win over Carlos Quatros to capture the vacant WBC belt at 115 pounds. Made the first defense against two-time WBC junior bantamweight champion Srisaket Rungvisai. And when we were discussing it, breaking it down last week, yeah, a lot of the focus was on Srisaket, right? Srisaket, excuse me, in terms of what sort of Rungvisai would we see? Would we see the Rungvisai that beat Roman Gonzalez twice, that beat Juan Francisco Estrada once, or will we see the Rungvisai post the rematch with Estrada, who hasn't looked that good? Uh, Rodriguez, on the other hand, we mentioned how he kind of sprung out of nowhere to a lot of folks with his win over Cadres, but hardcore fans have been had an eye on him for a good minute, right? Uh, Pegged him as a potential star in the lower weight divisions, and he showed himself to be a potential star with his performance against Rungvisai. Gained control of the matters early. I was surprised the way in which he was able to stand in the pocket and fight with Rungvisai, who's known for his physical strength and power. But Rodriguez, he showed it all, the ability to fight inside, at distance, mid range. He showed real good, slick moves that you don't see from a 22-year-old. And even though up until the Quadras fight, he had been fighting at 108 pounds, he brought the power up to 115, moved Rungvisai, eventually took him out, blasted him out in 8. Uh, Overall, Gail, I don't think you could not get any more impressive than what we saw from Bam this past weekend.
It is hard not to get completely wrapped up in the hype over this young man. Let's remind ourselves, I might say it about 80 more times. He's 22 years old. Now, he has also had the advantage of being in a gym, sounds like practically since he could walk, and followed his older brother, Joshua Franco, into the gym as well, who's 4 years older. So while his record may seem slim, both amateur and professional, he has been around gyms and he has been working on his craft a long, long time. And that kid is both naturally talented and a sponge. He's landed exactly the right place with Robert Garcia and the whole extended team, which he always credits the RGBA team, not just Robert, the entire team, for making him the fighter he already is. Yes, again, 22 years old. Part of the intrigue of this fight is we didn't know what version of Rungvisai would show up. He's been out of the ring so long for American fans in particular. He's only fought some minor keep busy fights in Thailand against opponents that, literally are Uber drivers. We don't know what the quality was. So it's been a long, long time since the spectacular knockout of Gonzalez, and then the not very good performance against Juan Francisco Estrada. So it did appear to be he lost a bit of speed. He looked very flat footed. He's always been a bit flat footed, which did aid his power. But Rodriguez was a moving target. His footwork is phenomenal. His ability to punch from angles is right there on the trajectory to be just as good as Manny Pacquiao. The footwork as good someday as Lomachenko. He's getting there pretty quick. It's scary good. And he beat Rungvisai to the punch. Rungvisai's punch output. Lee Groves is out there in the chat. Lee, that punch output by Rungvisai was almost non-existent. In the meantime, Bam Rodriguez is firing off power punches like crazy and landed 66%. Yes, you heard that. 66% of his power punches, according to CopyBox. I just about fell off my seat when I saw that number. I knew he was landing a lot of shots, but 66%, that's a machine. And in the end, he absolutely just beat down Rungvisai. He overwhelmed him and knocked him down finally, cleanly in the 7th round. A pretty quick knockdown. It was more of a both gloves hitting the canvas and Rungvisai popping back up. but the veteran was in very bad shape. And once referee Mark Calloy rightly called off the fight, um, Rodriguez was thrilled. He fought like a very mature man, and he celebrated like a teenager. He was thrilled. He threw himself to the canvas, yelling. He was rolling around. Robert Garcia is going into the ring, laughing, and that's what you want to see, is somebody that excited about their win. Truly a coming out party for him in front of the San Antonio fans. As Eddie Hearn said, you've got a star on your hands, San Antonio. Well, San Antonio, please share him with the rest of us. Let's hope for many, many years to come. He has got to be one of the most exciting American fighters to come along. What, since Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, maybe? Truly an amazing performance.
Indeed, it was, and to pinpoint uh, the domination, the significance of Rodriguez's performance. I'm going to put this comment up from Lee Groves again. He said, by the way, this is for those checking us out on YouTube. Lee says, by the way, Rodriguez became the first man to stop Rungvisai since the Thai suffered back-to-back TKO losses in his first and second pro fights. Let that sink in, folks. Daniel from 4Boxing News and the Inspired has joined us. I'll go to him in a bit, but I'll go to Jacob first to get uh, 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 his analysis of the fight. Um, the praise towards Bam has been overflowing post this win, this stoppage over Rungvisai. Do you share the excitement that seems to be overflowing towards him in the aftermath?
Yeah, I mean, very impressive performance by Rungvisai. I mean, by Bam over a credible opponent. Um, Now, I don't think that Rungvisai, not to take any credit away from Bam, I don't think Rungvisai is the fighter that he once was. But it was really impressive, and listening to Gel kind of hit on all the points, but it was very impressive the maturity that this young man has from just even from one fight, from the Quadros fight where he took a bunch of like maybe stayed in the pocket a little bit too much and took some unnecessary shots, and he made the adjustments, and he didn't do that with Rungvisai. He's very slick, as you said, making Rungvisai miss badly at times. Rungvisai looked very slow. He looked like the power was still there, but I think with the Bam thing, it's not so much about the power, but more so the precision of his punches and the way that he does the very like Lomachenko, pivoting for angles and getting off his combinations, like he did against Quadros. But I mean, the sky's the limit for this young man. I do think that if they make the Chocolatito fight, I do think that, and oddly enough, even though Rungvisai beat Chocolatito and knocked him out, I think Chocolatito is actually a harder stylistic matchup for Bam, and it'll be a tough fight. But hats off to Bam, and hope to see more of this kid. Hopefully, he stays active, and hopefully, with Bam, that he doesn't. I mean, he's a front runner for possibly the fighter of the year, with these two performances coming out of nowhere, besides like some of the hardcores of the San Antonio natives. But yeah, this kid's really impressive. I just hope he, stays injury free, has more good fights and more good matchups. He seems to kind of want to take on all the comers. I know there's some weird things with his brother, where he's wants his brother to kind of get some certain fights, and I think he's going to go back down to 112 or something like that, Bam. But yeah, I think a star is born.
Certainly seems to be the case. Before I go to Daniel, we'll read some comments here. Olaf the Mighty says Bam is on the top 10 pound for pound. I'm not going there yet, but he's certainly on the come up. Lee once again gives a numerical breakdown. He says for the record, so Rungvisai averaged 57.8 punches per round against Rodriguez. As a point of comparison, he averaged 137.7 per round in his lead up fights 15 months earlier. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your assessment of what happened, was this Rodriguez um, given an example of being a future star or future pound for pound interest to Olaf's point, or was this bad Rungvisai a combination of both? What say you?
It's a combination of both, but a lot more credit has to be given to Bam on this because he got put into a very, very big stage that he probably was not supposed to be in for another year or two because he was pretty well 108, but then we know what happened. He came in late replacement, handled Carlos Quadros pretty well, and now with Rungvisai, Rungvisai was always the main worry of as far as how he looked because most of the time, like ever since being Chocolatito, he's been fighting mostly in Thailand, and then the few times he's fought actual competition, like with Estrada, he didn't look good. And this was indeed one of the cases, even though as Lee pointed out, he did throw a little bit more than 1/3 of the punches that he normally throws. He was landing pretty well to the body. He was putting that work in, but it just wasn't enough against someone like me who was moving in angles, was popping the jab, nice and crisp, and then landed combinations. But the one thing that really impressed me about Bam in this fight is it's the one thing, like I said, that gripes me about some fighters, like Dimitri Bivol mainly. He has the killer instinct. He saw a wounded fighter, and rather than try to prolong it, he went in for the kill and just put Rungvisai in a position where he just could not throw back, and the referee stopped the fight. Perfect stoppage, and this kid is going to be a problem. Now, I know the situation, like I said, with his brother is going to be pretty weird because they would be both fighting within the same division, and they can go back down to 112 if they need to. But that is a performance that you rarely see. Somebody on Twitter actually asked, is this the most impressive, given the age and the level of stage he was jumping in? Somebody tried to say, it wasn't on Twitter, I think it was with me and Dougie Fisher, that the probably closest comparison you can see so far, just far sudden impact, would have been Tyson. But even then, when Mike did what he did, he didn't do it against George Foreman and Larry Holmes. Bam did that to two of the people that we consider the four kings in the Superfly. And now the other two more than likely going to face each other, and he'll more than likely face the winner. That is a career trajectory that is more than impressive. Like I said, Bam is a star. Robert Garcia has a diamond in there. Eddie Hearn locked him up for a reason. This kid is going to be headlining some cards and headlining pay-per-views probably within about 3 to 4 years if nothing drastic happens.
In terms of just suddenness of a guy who just sprung on the scene, he I can get it. Though as much as I been critical of Floyd, I can't take away what he did back to back against Chicanito Hernandez and Angel Manfredi in back to back fights. The way Pacquiao came back on the scene after losing the flyweight title, running roughshod through 122, culminating with uh, his win against Barrera. And even though it was a draw against one Manuel Marquez, the fight was sensational. There are a couple of other examples I can give, but in terms of a guy that was under the radar to meet to mainstream hardcore heads, and then to do something like this, it's a comparison I can understand. I'm not going to push back against it. Some more comments here in the chat. Good analysis, Nate. Good name to mention, Nate. Lee, excuse me. He says, I would say 17-year-old Wilfred Benitez beating Antonio Cervantes was all-time best performance of a prodigy against a confirmed all-time great. Excellent historical point there. Larry Liston says defense was on par. Great head movement, good at slipping and countering. Also seems like he got really good power. By the way, Srisakat's head was getting rocked backwards. Olaf says that I don't think there's even a question that Bam would also annihilate Gonzalez and Estrada. I wouldn't go that far. A true pound for pound talent. Boxing has a lot of generational talent all of a sudden. Let's talk future here. Jacob kind of hinted at it during his breakdown. Um, Bam, who in the days after the fight against Rungvisai, has signed an extension with Matchroom, has options across the board at 15 and 12. Um, you got you got Estrada, you got Chocolatito at 15, right? Estrada is going to fight. Is set to fight Bam's brother Franco, right? Don't know exactly what Chocolatito is going to do, uh, but Rodriguez also has options at 112. IBF flyweight champion Sonny Edward is all over social media calling him out. And then you got Julio Cesar Martinez, who was supposed to fight on the undercard, but had to pull out due to falling ill. And then you got a certain fighter in Japan that a lot of quote unquote self-professed hardcore fans, a lot of them don't talk about enough, in my opinion. And that is WBO flyweight champion Junto Nakatani. I wrote about this for Three Kings Boxing. Please check out Three Kings Boxing, your source for boxing information. Shout out to the crew over there, the head of Big 3KB, 2K, aka Prodigy of Boxing Talk, Bo, head of media relations, who you heard on the show numerous times. I'm a senior writer there. Shout out to fellow senior writers, Bakari, Jarrell, aka Big Cool, and also editor Red. I wrote about we've had stories about the fight itself between Rodriguez and Rungvisai, and post-fight articles as well. Junto Nakatani, I think it was Bo who wrote about him. Nakatani has been in the United States training in LA, I believe. He was in San Antonio for the fight. And afterwards, he says he would love to fight Rodriguez. I know everybody is glowing with praise about uh, Rodriguez, and justifiably so. But when Hearn and others just go off and say that he would just insinuate that he would just wipe the floor with everybody at 12 and 15. Hold up there now. One, as great as he looked against Rungvisai, I'm not ready to say that he just makes food of a Chocolatito, even a past his prime Chocolatito. I'm not ready to say he makes easy work of Estrada, right? And if Nakatani's calling him out, I want to see that more than anything, because for those who haven't seen Nakatani, he can go. I'm telling you right now, he can go. He is just as talented as Bam. He has just as much ability as Bam. He's taller than Bam, and he's a southpaw with range. If I had to make a pick between Bam Rodriguez and Junto Nakatani, I couldn't. 50-50, 60-40, 50-50, 60-40 fight that could go either way. I'll just leave it up to whoever wants to talk about it. The future of Bam Rodriguez. Should he stay at 115? Should he move down to 112? What should he do? Because again, uh, 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 options galore for him. Options galore.
Well, Bam and his brother Joshua are very much like the Klitschko's. They are not going to fight each other. And Bam has made it very clear that Joshua is the senior member of the team, and Joshua gets the first call. So whether he would ever be offered a fight with one of the other two kings, Estrada or Chocolatito, he made it clear Joshua gets first crack. Joshua's going to be the mandatory. To me, I think he moves back to, I don't think 108 got enough to offer him. I think he could clean out 112 with his eyes closed at this point. I really do. I think he should move back to 112. Well,
He
while
ain't
it's
cleaning out Nakatani. No
well,
way.
well, but I do think he beats him. I do think he beats him.
He wipes the floor with Martinez, but not
Wipes the
Juto.
floor with Martin. Fair enough. I do think he wins though, and since he can do it, he's 22. He might as well do it now. It gets him out of the way of his brother if that's something he wants to do. I think it'd be easier for him overall. Why not become undisputed, unified at 112? Wouldn't be difficult for him to make all those fights right now, and get that done while his brother is off doing business at 115. And then we see what happens. How does his brother do? Does his brother get beaten? Does he win? Who else is out there moving up, moving down that wants to tackle him? That buys him a little bit of time, gets him in some fights. I do think the Nakatani fight, he would be smart to think about doing that in Japan, build his fan base as well there. It's a much bigger fight there. It's a much bigger money fight there. That's what I'd like to see him do. But you know what? As long as he's in the ring doing what he thinks is best, what he thinks Robert is best, he has said clearly, hey, whatever Robert tells me to do, I'm down with that. So I think they're all going to go back to Southern California, have a chat, and make a plan for the rest of the year. I would love to see him at least once more this year, if not twice.
I'll go to you, Daniel and Jacob. What should be the plan? What should be on the docket for Bam Rodriguez? Let's just say for the next 12 to 18 months.
That's the part that's very interesting because we've seen this dynamics before in brothers. You compare it to the Klitschko's. I would say the Charlos is probably the most burdened one right now, where you have one brother in one weight division and the other brother in another weight division, and they're both doing their thing. Granted, one of them's now undisputed champion, and the other one's barely trying to get good fights. It's best to avoid that type of scenario, but at the same time, Bam, luckily, because of his age, because he's still growing a bit into this role that he's put himself into, he can go down to 112. And there's a certain WBC champion at 112 that looks kind of vulnerable at the moment.
Looks.
Yeah. Yeah. That it looks like that titles could be
He
prime for the
is.
taking. Oh yeah, we know. We know he is, but that's what I mean. There's paths to do this at 112. And it's not just, and it won't be simple fights that will be able to make. There's going to be some good fights. Now, if he goes after Naktani, oh, yeah, put that in Japan. Even in Japan, you're able to do it at 50-50. That would be a banger of a fight. And that would be pretty much to see who the top dog would be in that division. Who's going to be the one to try to take out either Gallo or Chocolatito. But if they decide that it's Joshua, that Joshua Franco's supposed to go, there's a good chance of it either. There's really good possibilities for it to go. There's probably going to be waiting to see, because at the end of the day, we've seen that family dynamic. Like we've seen it with the Charlos, we've seen it with the Klitschko's, we technically seen it with the Golovkins, where one brother didn't go professional because the older one chose to be. So that is going to be very interesting to see. I could see him hovering around 112, seeing the Joshua Franco moves to probably go to 118, and if he does that, then that leaves it completely open. Completely open.
Comments are popping off in the live chat. I'm going to read a few of them before I go to you, Jacob. Shout out to Larry Liston, who's joined us on the show. Said Zazan for sure. The best promotion as of right now. All the right fighters were provided this year. Makes certainly. Just basically a shout out to Zazan. Olaf says that Bam would clearly wash Estrada and Gonzalez. Says Srisaket stopped one Gonzalez twice. Correction, sir. The first fight was a decision win, and did well against Estrada. We can extrapolate that he would dominate those old fighters based on his performance. Old boxing adage, Olaf. You can't do that. Styles make fights just because he did well against, just because he did what he did against Roman, for instance, right? Doesn't mean that he would do the same thing to Estrada, because Estrada fights in a completely different style. He's more of a boxer. He's more of a mover than Gonzalez. So be careful with your comparisons. I'm just saying. Lee says also in the chat that Nakatani is 3 inches taller and knows how to fight tall. He also has power and he's looked excellent. It'll be a big challenge for Bam. Some more comments. Give me a quick second. Larry retorts and says that Junto leaves himself too open. Bam has a thicker, wider frame and also has more power, I believe. Choco is harder fight. Chocolatito is a harder fight for Bam. So yeah, keep him coming. Keep him coming. I'll go to you, Jacob. In terms of Bam Rodriguez, again, I'll repeat the same question to you that I asked of Daniel. In terms of his team and whatnot, what do you think he should do? What should be his plan in terms? What should be his plan for the next year to year and a half?
Unfortunately, what I think he should do is stay at 115 and fight, these other guys and try to unify the division. What I think will happen is that basically because of this brother situation, he's probably going to go back down to 112. But we'll see what happens with the Estrada Franco fight, if that's the next fight that's going to happen. And I could see a scenario, I guess, if Estrada beats Franco and then, Bam wants to kind of avenge his brother's loss, depending on how bad of a loss it is or if it's a loss at all, then, there's that, I guess, scenario that could happen. I think, having a fight with Chocolatito, I think would be a good one. The other, choice of the Japan fight, I think is another good choice. But again, I just want to see him active. I totally disagree with that he's going to wash, Estrada and Chocolatito, just because, the math that you're using there is that just because one, not you personally, but the commenters, but just because one fighter beats one fighter, then that means that they will beat their opponent like that. That's been disproven so many different times,
Not how it works in this sport.
Yeah, because I think what Chocolatito actually offers, I would actually favor him in that fight. I think what he offers, he's not obviously the same fighter that he was, but he did bounce back pretty well, from his knockout loss to Rungvisai. And I think he's looked like, the Martinez fight was supposed to be kind of a competitive fight, and I don't think it was. I think he basically, showed Martinez up. He's very active. He's another one of those guys that has a lot of, he's going to go the full 12 rounds. He's going to, throw a lot of punches, a lot of angles, and just kind of wear on you. And he's a veteran of the sport, so I don't think that Bam, as talented as he is, I don't think he's going to show anything to Chocolatito that he hasn't seen before. Yes, he's a young version, and he does use angles and whatnot. And I think he has some power, but I think his power is really in the precision of his punches and the way he does that. But I think Chocolatito is a live dog in that fight, and I think that it would be a great fight. I mean, I hope they're able to make it, because then the winners of both of those fights can fight. We could either get an Estrada Chocolatito Part 3, like we were supposed to get, or we get a Bam versus Estrada, or Franco versus Chocolatito. I mean, there's a bunch of different combinations, but obviously no Franco versus Franco fight. So, but again, hopefully they can make it happen. The promotional part is kind of good. That those fighters aren't with like the PBC or something like that. So there shouldn't be any problems to make the fight. Just whether they want to do it and everybody can stay healthy and make it to the dance.
Gonna put up this one. Some more comments here. Olaf says, well, when they make that fight, put money down, because the odd makers are going to make Gonzalez a 5-1 underdog. They may make him the underdog 5-1.
No.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
They might, though, because wasn't Rungvisai? He was like what? He was an underdog in the fight. It was I want to say at least 3.5, maybe even 4.
Was he really? No, I don't think so.
I think so. I'm pretty sure he was. I think
I do think Roman presents the biggest challenge at this point in that division for Rodriguez. I think Estrada he can beat. It would be a bit of a banger. Yeah, wow, 5-1, Larry. That is crazy. I hope people didn't really throw their money away on that. Oh my God, that would have been awful.
Yeah, he was. Rodriguez was a 4-1.
Crazy business. And as much as I like Estrada, the reason I wouldn't pick him is because Rodriguez's boxing skills and footwork are just so good. I think he'd be able to stay out of the worst that Estrada has to offer. Now with Chocolatito, they both have similar skill sets. I'm not saying Rodriguez is equal to the legacy and long track record of Ramon Gonzalez, but they bring the same type of tools in the same toolkit to the ring versus Estrada, who is a little more of a straight ahead guy, which is why I think that Bam could beat him. And Chocolatito presents more of a challenge. But his brother, by letting his brother go and fight them first, he's kind of sending out a scouting party for himself. He's got all sorts of information from his brother being in the ring with those guys. Now, the problem comes if his brother beats, Estrada in particular, or the winner of an Estrada Chocolatito fight if he doesn't fight one of them as a mandatory. And then what do you do? Then you're in trouble. But there is the age difference. Bam is absolutely, I'm telling you, Bam defers to Joshua. So that's why I see Bam going to 112, doing his business there, kind of buys time for Joshua to do what he's going to do. What's interesting to me is, and I've heard Joshua say this more than once, and I think he has posted this on social media, that, hey, I'm good, but my brother is great. So he's very realistic about where they both stand. They're both excellent young fighters, though. What a great problem to have. I mean, this is the problem you want to have in boxing. So we are going to be treated to a lot of great fights for quite a few years to come. In the meantime, it's going to be at 112. So
yeah, I think he's going to
don't worry
eventually go
about
back
that.
down,
Yeah.
down to 112. One last comment here from Lee before we move on, and I'm gonna split the rest of these fights up because we ate up a lot of time talking about this particular fight. Lee says it's history repeating itself. In the 1980s, we had Chacon, Lamone, Boza, and Navarrete at 130. He's talking about Bobby Chacon, Bozuka Lamone, Cornelius Bones, Boza Edwards, and Navarrete at 130. And Arguello, the late great Alexis Arguello beat them all. Bam has beaten Quadras and SSR. Can he take out Estrada and Chocolatito too? Very good question. Very good
And then
question.
we imagine this interesting revolving of history. Arguello being the man that Chocolatito has always revered and styled himself after, and now having a young Mexican American fighter become the modern Arguello. Very interesting.
Indeed, indeed, and I think we'll move on that interesting note. So I want to thank everybody for the questions. Keep them coming. Keep the questions in the comments coming. I love it. I love it. The game of competitive banter here on this particular episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Let's move on to some other fights here. And like I said, I'm going to split these up because again, Jacob can't be on the entire show. He has to leave early. Unfortunately, I'll go to you, Jacob. In fact, to talk about. This particular fight, this other fight took place on the card. Unified champion at 122 pounds, MJ Akhmadaliev took on mandatory challenger. I think this is WBA mandatory challenger, Ronny Rios. MJ had to fight through some adversity, suffered he hurt his left hand early in the second round, excuse me, but I like how he adjusted, right? He got the jab going, he got the right hook cracking, and he did so with a lot of success. Once the left hand started to calm down, he began to use that weapon as well. Ultimately, he outboxed and pounded out a TKO win, stopped Rios in the second round. Give your thoughts on the fight, but more importantly, I'm hearing more and more a call for MJ to fight the other unified champion at 122, Stephen Fulton. During the fight, he said that MJ would be easy work. He said, "Let's make it happen." His goal is to become undisputed champion at 122 pounds. The likelihood, Jacob, that we see Akhmadaliev, Stephen Fulton for undisputed honors at junior featherweight. Can we see that this year?
I don't know. I think they both want the fight, but I think promotionally, I believe it's a tough fight to make. Unfortunately, I agree. I mean, that should be the fight that's next. But to talk about MJ's performance, I think it was a good performance. It was kind of a shame that he hurt his hand so early on in the fight. He had him hurt. I think it was maybe it was the second or third round to the body, and had Rios kind of like bending over almost completely like an L shape, which was surprising to see. And then it happened again in the 12th. But I would have liked to see a little bit more, I guess, pressure and from MJ. But be that as it may, I understand, because he had the injury to the hand, so he was kind of, a one-hand fighter for a little bit, or was kind of laying off the left hand. But his right was landing pretty cleanly when he was throwing it, and the jab was working. So I think he probably could have done a little bit more, but I'll give him a pass because of the injury. But it was a good performance. But I would really love to see the Fulton fight, for all the belts. I mean, we're living in an era now, in the 4-board belt era, where it used to be it's very uncommon for people to unify, and now it seems like it's becoming more and more common. Or the opportunities are there like more and more, and it's kind of nice to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you. I want to see that fight. I think Akhmadaliev has another mandatory with the IBF looming. But shout out to Bo, head of media relations. We talked about this Sunday on the Twitter space for Three Kings Boxing. A lot of times when it comes to the IBF, if it's something bigger along the lines, more times than not, they will let that happen. They're not as strict when it comes to mandatories as the WB, as the BA, the BC, and the BO. Um, Given that backdrop, hope springs eternal. I think everybody here and everybody checking us out live would love to see that fight. Styles making fights, it makes for a very, very good matchup. I think it'll go the distance. I can't predict the winner, but yeah, yeah. Hearn, PBC, who handles Fulton, uh, works some magic behind the scenes to make this happen. If not later on this year, then certainly early next year. I'll go to you, Daniel, for this last recap. And yeah, I'm going to have to eat some crow here because I talked a lot about Jessica McCaskill, her fight against mandatory challenger Alma Ibarra. McCaskill, of course, being the undisputed women's welterweight champion of the world, and I said that Alma Ibarra at the very least had a heck of a shot. Felt that she could beat her. It didn't turn out to be that the way that case as McCaskill put the pain on her early and basically overwhelmed her en route to a stoppage win. I wasn't able to see this fight; just saw highlights of it. There were those on boxing Twitter who suggested that she made Ibarra quit. What happened? What happened here with Ibarra and McCaskill? I gotta give her her credit. She did what she had to do, and afterwards, yeah, she's talking about moving back down to 140 and fighting Chantel Cameron.
Yeah, that was a fight that I think people really expected Ibarra to pretty much put a radar on because you saw it physically. She was the much bigger fighter, and you probably were expected for her to wear McCaskill down because of that. But I think the one thing we probably didn't count on is McCaskill just decided just to try to hit home runs throughout the entire fight. And we know that McCaskill can crack. And that's what happened. In the first round, they were starting to trade. They're doing fairly well, but then McCaskill, I think, landed a left hook. And that bothered Ibarra for the rest of the fight. Because every single time that Ibarra tried to impose her size, McCaskill landed a clean shot or landed a home run shot. And you could tell like it wasn't an injury because the way the fight ended, it was just basically Ibarra realizing I'm not going to be able to beat this girl. This girl's hitting home runs. She's trying to hit home runs on me. And she's not afraid of my size advantage. Which unfortunately was very sad. But at the end of the day, luckily, these fighters know that they have to. Sometimes there are something a little bit bigger. She is a mom, and I think that was one of the arguments that she had with her manager before they stopped the fight. Where she said, like, I'd rather want to go home and be a mom to my kids. But for McCaskill, this clears up a lot of things. There's people now know like she can still crack, but there's still some flaws there. She said herself she could easily just be at 140 rather than 147. It's as good of a fight as we would have gotten. I don't think Ibarra was really ready to take the shots that McCaskill was trying to throw very early in the fight.
Quick question in terms to everybody who wants to respond to this. Thoughts on McCaskill talking about moving back down to 140 and challenging the likes of Chantel's Cameron. If anybody wants to entertain that,
That's not a bad move. The problem for McCaskill and a lot of the slightly larger weight divisions for the women is they start running out of competition. And, McCaskill's run through just about everybody there is at 147. She can take stay busy fights, and I admire her for doing that. At least, that's keeping her busy and keeping her in front of people. She's not quite ready to retire to the broadcast booth yet, but when she does, I hope she does. She is outstanding as a commentator. So she's got a great future ahead of her there. But not yet. Not yet. And I do like what I'm seeing with her increasing punching power. I think she's just getting more skilled, getting more practice. And, when you've got all those belts, maybe it's just, that weight training hefting those belts. It is really true that having those championships gives you a different level of confidence, and it really does make a difference. But going down to 140, yeah, why wouldn't she? Yeah, maybe that's it, Lee. Maybe she is tired of paying all those sanctioning fees, when she's just running through everybody. She's proven what she needed to prove at 147. At this point, she sort of has to wait for the next generation of women to come forward. But Jessica is not a young woman herself. I think she's 37. So she's got to do what she needs to do now. Get out. I hope we do see her though, at least a couple of more years.
you'll see her. You'll see her a couple more years. Be it at continuing to defend her belts. Excuse me, at 47 or moving back down to 40. I like that fight. Cameron, a really, really good fighter at 140 pounds, I thought. But the problem is that Cameron has talked about wanting to unify the titles at 140 pounds. She wants to fight the other unified women's champion at junior welterweight, Callie Reese, who's on the shelf right now. Shout out to Callie. Bless you. Shout out. Bless you, Daniel. Shout out to Callie Reese, who has who's on, what's the show she's on HBO right now?
Well, Callie Reese has just been signed to star against opposite, I should say, star with Jodie Foster. Yes, Oscar winner Jodie Foster on the next season of True Detective. That is really impressive. That was announced today by HBO and reported in Variety magazine. Callie just made an independent film that was extremely well received. It was voted the audience favorite at the Sundance Film Festival. That involved an Indigenous storyline, story about domestic violence. Tremendous. And I'm trying to recall what the name is. Shame on me. But you're going to be able to see her in True Detective on HBO. I mean, if she would not get that sort of plum assignment, this is not a bit part. This is a co-starring role. So bravo to her.
Indeed. She's burgeoning acting career for Callie Reese. I'm not mad at her. If she can get, if acting is her side hustle, and then she can continue to fight and defend her titles in the ring, get in where you fit in and get it where you can.
Well, I think boxing becomes the side hustle and acting becomes the main job.
If she can make the money, I'm not mad at her, because let's face it, the women put in less, just as
more money acting for an HBO series than she would in the ring.
Absolutely.
I mean, the only women making the big coin right now are just a handful of big names. Not that Callie doesn't have the talent, but she's just not there.
Yeah, more than it looks like McCaskill is going to fight at 140. Her trainer, manager, boyfriend Rick Ramos has tweeted that McCaskill will fight at 140 pounds next. End of story. So that looks to be the plan. Let's move on and to get to a bit of news here. And one main news development that kind of broke last night, and that involves one Mikey Garcia. Garcia 4 divisional champion, world champion, 26, 30, 35, 40. If you check out his Instagram page, which he updated, he changed his profile description, and it now has retired 4-time champion at 126, 130, 135, 140. So I'll go get the conversation start off with you, Gail, and you can add on Jacob and Daniel. In the most low key of ways, Mikey Garcia has basically announced his retirement. Your reaction to this development?
I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. Mikey has communicated to all of us in his own way over the years that he's only boxing because he got drawn into the family business and because he had the talent to be successful. But it was never a big dream of his, never that shining goal ahead of him. He always wanted to be in law enforcement. He has talked about that. He went through a state of California sanctioned law enforcement academy. He passed with flying colors. He always wanted to, of all things, be in the California Highway Patrol. Well, he can still do that if he wants to, or he could support law enforcement in some other way. Who knows? But Mikey's heart was just not truly in it. And he had hiccups along the way, contract issues that were clearly driven by the fact that he wasn't pressing forward in a way that somebody who's absolutely driven to the sport is. But there are a lot of people, I'm sure, listening who either know from firsthand experience or know somebody in this position of sort of feeling the pressure to carry on the family's business interests. And he was seemingly the natural choice, except for the fact that it wouldn't have been the path in life he would have chosen otherwise. So when he came back after his layoff and had that absolutely horrible, unmotivated performance against Sandro Martin, the writing was on the wall. And what I like about this is he didn't make a big deal of it, and he didn't lie to himself anymore. He just said, I'm done. I'm done. He can't fight these fights for other people. He has to either do it for himself or quit. And it's far too dangerous a sport. If you aren't in it 182% or more, you shouldn't be there. So good luck. I'll be very interested to see where he goes from here. He was at the fight San Antonio, funny enough. He kind of made an appearance. He didn't say anything at that point. Everybody sort of yucked it up with him. Oh, we'll look forward to seeing you get back in the ring. And he just smiled and played along. But I'm sure this plan was long in his mind before then. Whether he stays around boxing, it's very possible that he follows Robert into being a trainer. That would be an interesting development if he decides to do that. And I'm sure he's very capable of doing something like that should he choose to. Now, that's a big stable there at RGBA. If he wants to join the team at that end, he can certainly do that. Questions floating around on social media, which I'll lob off to everybody to join in, is whether he is headed for the Hall of Fame. And not on the first ballot. Not sure what would happen on second or third.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to Los Libertinos podcast for checking us out live. To your point, Gail, Lee put in the comments section that only 2 fighters have achieved the 126, 30, 35, 40 quadruple. That is Hall of Famer Juan Manuel Marquez and future Hall of Famer Manny Pacquiao. Mikey could very well join him in Canastota. First, who knows? First opportunity he get, first ballot, I should say. I mean, given how the Hall of Fame International Boxing Hall of Fame works and their criteria. I don't think so. But you give him some years. I don't think so. But you never know. You never know. I would say you just don't know. You just don't know. I'll go to you, Jacob. Gail alluded, basically made the argument saying if your heart isn't in it, and kind of to this point by Los Libertinos, Mikey Espudos Tacos, it's hard once you got that. Okay, it was hard once you got that passive money.
All
But
right.
anyway,
On target, man. Right on target. Love it.
but yeah, Gail has basically said that once your heart isn't in it, it's just time to just pass the baton. And there has been a question from from a lot of pundits saying that Mikey never had the fighter spirit and fighter's mentality. Do you think that played a role, Jacob? As accomplished as Mikey Garcia was, right, winning 4 world titles, there were also fights on the table that we did not see him in. Do you think that lack of oomph, that lack of huevos, that balls to the wall, I'll fight anybody in the building, played a role in the fights that we did not see from him, be it Lomachenko at 30 or 35, be it fights against guys like Tank Davis, uh, um, other fighters I can think of right now that escapes me at 126 and 130 in particular. Um, yeah, good fighter, highly accomplished, but to me it seems like there was a lot more meat left on the bone for Mikey Garcia.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that Mikey didn't have the fighter spirit. I think, like Gail said, I mean, he did allude and basically say that it wasn't what he wanted to do long term, or wasn't his, I guess you can say, dream job. I think, when you grow up in a family that is connected to boxing, I mean, this happens with a lot of different professions, like, actors and actresses, they have kids, and, supposedly they don't want anything to do with it, and they end up doing that. Or, sports, other sports figures, other sports, you see their kids, have to end up kind of getting wrapped up into that, because it's the world that they're around, and so it's what they know. And I think with Mikey, he had so much natural talent, so he was kind of a victim of his own success, so to speak, um, where even though his heart wasn't fully in it, he was able to be a really good fighter and boxer and have success. So it's kind of hard to even fathom, like, well, what if he did have his heart and soul into it? Like, how good could he have been? So I mean, I'm glad that he's, he still has his faculties, right? It's something that I've talked about many times, about, fighters calling it quits when their time is up, and how hard that is to do. And so hopefully, he's been smart with his money, and I don't think he'll have that desire to come back, because, again, this wasn't what he really wanted, long term. So he might be one of those success stories that was able to not go out on top, but at least be able to go out and still be involved, but still do other things. And he has his, again, his faculties, his health, and he can enjoy, the later part of his life, and he's still a young guy. So, I mean, he still has a long time to do things. And, will he become a trainer or whatnot? I mean, I don't think that always translates. Just because you're a good fighter doesn't mean that you're going to be a good trainer. But I'm sure he'll have some foot in there in some way. But hopefully he gets to go pursue his actual dream. If it is law enforcement, then power to him. Go pursue that. And thank you for the fights that we got to see.
Um, to be a trainer, you have to have the same level of commitment and passion for it, just like you would as a fighter. So while the knowledge is certainly there, the expertise would be certainly there, given his many interests away from the sport of boxing. I'm unsure that I'll go to you, Daniel. Your thoughts on the career of Mikey Garcia before I once again put this comment up from Lee, who says he was 10-1 against 11 championship level opponents, and he was pound for pound type fighter at his best. He also won his first 39 fights, but the way people feel about him may hurt him. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your thoughts on Mikey Garcia? If you were to grade him, would incomplete be the best grade?
Depending upon the weight class, yes, because if featherweight was an interesting time in his division, 130, 135, Loma was right there, Comey's right there, but obviously, like that was at the point where he wanted to leave Top Rank. And in the PBC, he did have some success, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, when it comes to Mikey, people are gonna. It's a situation where a lot of the sports, what have you done for me lately? If people are gonna remember his last fight, didn't really look that good. People are gonna remember the performance that he had against Spence, where it didn't look at really that good. Granted, I think that was one weight division too many to jump, but there are certainly some fights there that were left on the table. Because if I think partly he was still probably make 126 around the time Gary Russell Jr. won the WBC title. So there were a lot of fights, there were a lot of opportunities to make it there, but at the same time, we all
Russell, he
knew.
was there. Linares, couple other fighters I
Yeah,
could mention as well.
yeah, there's a lot of fights that could be left. But the thing is, at the end of the day, all of us knew that this wasn't what he was really, really passionate about. Boxing was something that he was doing because he knew how to do it. He did it well. But we knew his interest was outside of the sport, mainly law enforcement. That's probably the direction he'll probably head into, because at the end of the day, he probably did save his money, and he probably did see how boxing affected his family for a little bit. We have to remember, at a certain point, Robert and his older brother didn't talk for years, even though they were technically next door neighbors. And it was a situation over boxing that became personal. And he probably sees how that can affect families, and probably say that probably stay away from, let me walk away from this while I'm somewhat unscathed. And the resume is enough for him to get into the Hall of Fame. It is, but it's not going to be first ballot. He'll go in probably within the first decade of his eligibility. He's not going to be a first ballot, obviously, but there's a lot of fights that he would have left. But at the end of the day, he's leaving to do something that he wants to do. He's leaving for interests that he wants to pursue, and he's leaving it with his faculties intact. That's the key part of it. He's leaving with his faculties intact. Jacob mentioned it. There's a lot of fighters that sometimes leave the sport a lot worse for wear than when they came in for it. And
100%.
Yeah. So, like, I tip my hat to Mikey. Like I said, he did what he mainly did, and technically, it wouldn't have surprised me if he made the final decision watching Bam fight, because now he sees his brother have a fighter that is probably going to carry him for the next decade. So it's not a situation where you have to lean. Robert may have to lean on him for a couple of things, but when you see that happen, you can walk away with your head held high. And that's what Mike's going to do. He's going to leave with his head held high. As much as, there were some other fights into it, at the end of the day, you're also going to the person you have to be satisfied with is yourself. And from the sound of it, Mikey is. And whatever interests are, whether it is going to law enforcement or even if he does believe he can do this as a trainer, more power to him. Congratulations.
Absolutely, congratulations to his career, despite my criticisms of him, and wishes that he could have engaged in a few more. That he would have that there were more fights out there that I wish he would have taken. Right, more opponents I wish he would have gotten in the ring with. But it is what it is. All in all, on balance, a terrific career. You can't sneeze at winning a world title in 4 divisions. Do I think he'll be in the Hall of Fame eventually? Yes, first ballot. I'm not so sure of that. But Daniel's final points said it all. The fact that he seems content and he's leaving the game with all his faculties. And as an aside, I'm guessing that he's financially stable as well, and that's all you want from a fighter when he decides to call it a day, and that seems to be the case. And we here at Pound for Pound Box Report salute him and wish him nothing but the best in his future endeavors. I'm going to leave the floor open here for anybody who has any more news developments before we go into these quick fight previews.
But you don't want to be talking stare downs? The week's various stare downs? No stare down bros here?
I mean, are you referring to Canelo and Triple G?
Canelo, Triple G, and Usyk Joshua.
I mean, yeah, okay, we can get into it right quick. What do you make of that?
I am kidding a little bit because people, what are you obsessed with stare downs for? It's theater. You get that?
Yeah, I mean, they looked like they was getting ready to fight. Looked like they were so serious they was getting ready to fight Canelo and Triple G when they were staring each other down at Yankee Stadium. But Eddie Hearn pat him on the back and just like, yeah, all good. So that speaks to Gil's point that a lot of this is theater and the hype in the art of pre-fight hype. You just take it with a grain of salt and keep it moving. They're not going to get into it. They're not going to spoil all that money that's coming down the pipe for both of them. Yeah, they ain't that stupid.
Yeah, absolutely not.
So indeed, let's move on to some fights here. I'm going to leave it up to you because look, light weekend of action. Let's start over in the UK. I believe it's Joyce who is number one contender according to one section of body, or top two, returning to the ring to fight Christian Hammer. I mean, the fight is there. I don't think Hammer has enough to keep Joyce off of him. Other than that, I got little else. What say y'all in terms of this fight?
I don't hate it for this reason. It keeps Joyce in the ring. It keeps him busy. And it gives us something to watch this weekend because there are virtually no American fight cards that go down on the 4th of July weekend. So thank you, Joyce and company, for giving us something to watch. It's a smart thing for him to do to get back in the ring and stay busy. But I don't think he's going to have much of a challenge.
Yeah, this is just mainly something to keep himself busy, something that is going to keep his name out there right as the Joshua Usyk train starts rolling. And that is going to be very, very telling as far as how he's going to look, because Hammer is a serviceable opponent. He is going to make you drag it into the rounds. But depending upon how we're going to see Joshua Usyk shapes up, it's going to be what the trigger is going to be for if he's going to be pushing his title challenges, because we also know that Mr. Dubois, the man he beat to get that spot, that's awesome, now actually has a secondary belt that he could push. So there's some intrigue there, but This should be a pretty easy fight for Joyce.
And this fight is going to take place July 2nd, London, England, on, I believe, ESPN2 for those who want to stateside or who wants to check out the fight. I think Zolani Tete, former champion at 115 pounds, he's fighting on the undercard, as is former light heavyweight world title challenger Callum Johnson. Also on the second fight is taking place in Australia. IBF cruiserweight champion Mairis Breidas. My apologies for spelling his name wrong in the description below. I'll fix that once the show is over. He's fighting a guy by the name of Opetaia.
Opetaia.
Sorry, I wasn't able to do enough research on this guy before the show, so I'm going to leave it up to Gail and Daniel to talk about this fight. Do you got anything? I think the dog is speaking for Gail here.
He's an Australian fighter, so he's the home fighter in Australia. Undefeated at 21-0 with 17 knockouts. What does that mean for an Australian cruiserweight? We don't know. All his fights to this point have been domestic, all of them. What I didn't check is that all of them were at cruiserweight, which I'm just going to quickly look up. But, you look at that paper record and think, well, it's one thing to be highly rated at cruiserweight in one country, but and believe it or not, yes, indeed, all his fights, save a couple odd ones here where it looks like he was just slightly over the limit. He's had one heavyweight fight, which he won, regional title. The rest have all been at cruiserweight. So a lifelong cruiserweight. He's young. He's 26 years old, 6'3". So it's not horrible. Again, a little bit like Joyce. I don't hate it because what else has Mairis Breidas got to work with? He's sort of the last champion standing. Certainly the top talent in that division. Now that Usyk, Garcia are out of it, he needs to wait a little bit to see who is coming up behind him. But Breidas is not particularly a young man, so if he wants to stay busy, is what he's got to do. And I give him a lot of credit. Breidas has never been afraid to be a road warrior. If you're the champion, you don't really have to go to Australia for a fight, but they'll draw a great crowd. He's got, certainly an opponent who's earned his shot. And again, thank you very much for us getting to see a card on the 4th of July weekend. This has also been picked up. I think this one has been picked up by DAZN, but don't hold me to that. But we do get to see this in the United States as well.
This is going to be a very, very interesting fight just because of the fact that Breidas is a crafty fighter. He does make it harder for a lot of opponents that come into it. And like you mentioned, there aren't a lot of pickings. There aren't a lot of great pickings at cruiserweight right now near the top, because obviously you have him and the IBF. Him, he's a new champion as well. WBC, we have Makabu, which unfortunately means dealing with Don King. In the WBO, you have Lawrence Okoli, who has a similar record, but his style is not always as eye-catching. And we have undefeated fighter in WBA, Arsen Glamarian, who may actually be presented a pretty decent challenge, but this is just something to make sure that Breidas keeps himself busy. He technically is the top dog in this division. Hopefully, though, after he clears this, I would not mind seeing him actually against Okoli. I would have said Makabu, but like I said, that means dealing with Don King. And I would rather not have deal with Don King. We already got rid of Don King in the heavyweight division with Trevor Bryan being shushed aside. Hopefully, we can try to get this out the way with cruiserweight. But it's a good fight to make, and it's something. It's true. It's something to watch on the 4th of July weekend in the U.S. because traditionally it is not a good weekend when it comes to boxing cards for obvious reasons.
And let me confirm, yes, ESPN Plus is airing the card. It's in Australia, however, so if they did not alter the time to suit the North American audience, which I'm sure they didn't, it's going to be damned early in the morning.
And I think we end the show on that note. Whoever this person Ozzy Mundias is, I can assure you that my astute co-host, my astute regular Gail is far from a casual. I don't know where you got that from. I don't know what brought you to say something
Yeah,
like that.
I'm a girl, so casual.
But
That, sir.
bruh, stop it. That's all I got to say about that. As well as your last comment, let me put you in timeout just for that. Thank you very much.
And we did get a great
Block button activated, sir.
from Lee Groves on the time. That Breidas fight, you got to have a bit of insomnia if you want to see that one. And it's gonna be early.
Absolutely. I think we're going to.
That is an early time.
Yeah. I'm going to end.
Called if you really want to see it. Avoid your social media when you wake up and watch the replay.
Yeah, just read here. 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Breidas Opetaia. So yeah. Gail can be described with many addicts. All of them are good. Casual is not one of them. I absolutely agree. Now we're going to start closing things down on that note. I'll give Jacob's breakdown here because he had to dip out early. He informed us that prior to the show, for those who want to talk boxing, movies, TV, and film with him, you can check him out on Twitter at JRATM23. And repeat that, JRATM23 on Twitter. Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing. I'm going to go to Gail here. Begin the show with ladies first. In the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News and Why Fights. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk media, for those who want to check you out occasionally on TMZ Live, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Well, I only talk to casuals. Okay, so if you want to talk to me, casual to casual, I am on the boxing Twitter at PR Pro San Diego and elsewhere on the socials. You can find me. If you really want to dig me up, go ahead.
And I'll go to you, Daniel, last but not least, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, check out his Inscriber podcast. Excellent breakdown of the situation, the troubles involving one Vince McMahon. But for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, folks, you can find me on Twitter, Rawkuz99, RAWKUZ99. Definitely catch me on there. And some interesting little tidbit just happened on Twitter not 2 minutes ago. It looks like one of our favorite fighters, Sinicia Estrada, is announcing that she's going to be fighting on August 6th.
Yeah, she's going to fight a rematch with, from my understanding, Annabelle Ortiz, the woman she beats last year to win the strawweight title, I believe it was. So yeah, I forgot to mention that. My apologies for that. But yes, Anicia Estrada, who I hope to get an interview with, not to certain folks within a private Zoom chat that I attend every now and then on Friday evenings. Yeah, I hope to get a score and an interview with one Miss Superbad. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness. You know what it is. With me on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to find out all things Pound for Pound Box Report, the site is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us, you can do so, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. Also on the site, links to our various pages all over social media, links to where to find the show all over the podcast world, where you can links to where you can donate, also links to Beachbody on Demand. At the very least, take advantage of the free 14-day trial on Beachbody on Demand. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. Be it Lee, be it Lee Groves, uh, be it Olaf, be it Los Libertinos, be it Larry Liston. Um, Trying to scroll up here earlier. I believe that's it. Yeah, thank you for all your comments and your questions. The chat was really popping again. If you have not hit that like button, that subscribe button, please do so. It will really help the algorithms and get us closer to being monetized. Next week, I made the decision behind the scenes that we're going to take the week off. Everybody needs some rest, and we're going to do that next week. The next time you will hear from us, we'll probably do a recap of Breidas and his win against Opetaia, recap of Joyce and Christian Hammer. We will also do, it depends on when we get back. We'll probably come back in time to preview Mark McCaskill defending the WBC featherweight champion title for the first time against former 122-pound champion Ray Vargas. We may get into Chisora and Pulev. They're fighting a rematch, I believe. And also look for us to do kind of our mid-year uh, recap, our mid-year analysis of the sport. Fight of the year, fighter of the year, knockout of the year, blah blah blah, at the midway point of 2022 and what we're looking forward to for the rest of the year. Again, I want to thank everybody in the chat. I want to thank Jacob for joining us earlier. I really love the interaction in the live YouTube chat. For Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing, for Gail from Communities Digital News and NY Fights, for Daniel of the Inscriber, and for Boxing News. This has been episode 369 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I am your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. See you not next week, but more than likely in a couple of weeks. Everyone have a good one. And condolences to the lives lost in that tragedy in San Antonio, all those people dying in that those senseless deaths in that trailer over in San Antonio. Our condolences to the family of those uh, whose lives were lost. Again, episode 369 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you hopefully in a couple of weeks.